feel like you are not connecting with your husband or your children, there is misunderstanding. Irritation rises until someone rolls their eyes or walks away. Emotions are high. No decision is made because it blows up into another argument. And you're thinking, how'd we get here? Is not miscommunication a vicious cycle that only leads to offense, strife, and hurt? How can we communicate so that we actually listen and give space for our husband and children to share their emotions and feel safe processing those emotions with us? I'm so glad that you asked, and I know that you'll be so glad that you pushed play to this episode. My special guest is Tera Wages from Connection Codes. Tera is a mom of 4 who used to describe herself as a shell of a human. She felt like she was failing at everything around her. Her kids were having regular tantrums, her marriage was operating on fumes, and she just wanted to hide in a closet. This all changed the moment that she discovered Connection Codes. In fact, the Connection Codes changed her life so much that she worked her way into the company and is now the CEO and podcast host of their weekly show, The Connection Codes. I know that you will love this episode, and by the end, you will know how to actually connect with your husband and children in 4 minutes or less. I promise. Let's go. You're listening to the Renewed Mama podcast. I'm Kimberly Mutar, and I help mamas like you stay renewed. I'm here to help you renew your thoughts that are on repeat while you wash dishes or fold laundry. I help you renew the words that you say to yourself and to your children when it's the best day ever and when it spirals into chaos, temper tantrums, and sibling fights. I am your coach, helping you to renew how you respond so that you keep showing up as the mama you want to be. What would it look like, Mama, if in your marriage and in your home, you actually shared your emotions and your feelings in a way that was seen and heard, not misunderstood, not brushed aside as if it's not a big deal or taken offense to? What would it look like if you had a way to help your children process and talk through their emotions? In this episode, you'll learn how to make this all true in your home. Did you know that the Renewed Mama podcast is on YouTube and Rumble? If you like to watch video podcasts while you wash dishes or fold laundry, join me there. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to help the YouTube channel and the Rumble channel to grow so that more mamas find the podcast and stay renewed with us. Thank you. Well, welcome, Tera, to the Renewed Mama podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love talking with mamas about motherhood.
Yes. Well, I would say the biggest struggle, hands down, in my marriage with Andrew and in our parenting has been miscommunication, misunderstanding each other, which only leads to strife and offense and hurt. But we are created for connection, right? Connection with God, connection with our spouses, connection with our children. So I would love for us to talk about how we can improve this communication with our husbands and our children.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to say to you and any listeners, you are not alone. I think so often what creates even more strife and pain in our marriages and in parenthood is that we think no other house is experiencing what we're experiencing. They look like they have it all together. Their Instagram is telling me that they are getting along great. And so then we have this extra layer of emotion that weighs us down, that creates more pain and more disconnect. So I just want everyone to hear you aren't alone if you're experiencing miscommunication after miscommunication and stuck in cycles of conflict with your husband or your kids.
I love learning about the brain. So How is it that our brain is coded for connection?
Learning about how we are wired for connection and how our brains are created to recognize our emotion and to connect with others has been life-changing and mind-blowing for me.
Hmm.
So I learned about the connection codes just 4 years ago, exactly today, which is very exciting. Uh,
Yeah.
and hearing that the studies and the research that's done about infants that were neglected. So there have been multiple studies now conducted, all, early 1900s, 1800s, where they would have two sets of babies. And one set they gave attention to, they gave love to, the other one, they gave basic needs, nothing more than the basic needs, no touch or affection
Mhm.
or communication. And the outcomes of what those two groups looks like. So in one of the studies, the babies that were neglected actually died. Like they could not
Mm.
survive without identity. In another study that I read recently that was in 1948, those babies grew up and they weren't able to look at other people.
Mm.
The way it was described, it sounded like what we would describe as autistic characteristics today. And I don't think that that's the basis of autism
Right.
for, as a general rule, but they were fidgety with their hands, their eye movement, their head movement. They lacked connection.
Mm.
And then more studies have come out that when we communicate with each other, even when we say certain words to each other using the core emotions, it fires in your brain. So if I start describing my joy to you and I say it as joy, the pleasure center in your brain will fire and you will get a dose of joy as well,
Mm.
just hearing me say that word. And so it just showed me how beautiful our brains were designed and how we truly were made to live in deep connection with other people. Our lives
Mm.
depend on it.
Right, right. And I'm curious, you said when you would describe your joy as joy, and then I get that trigger, that dose of joy too. Is that the same for the fear and um, guilt or shame?
Yeah.
If I were to say I feel shame or I feel fear, does that kind of rise up in you as the listener?
So I know for sure when joy is shared that your
Okay.
pleasure center fires.
Okay.
So with the other core emotions, I don't know for all eight if it will
Okay.
fire. So because there are eight core emotions.
Right.
And anger is a tricky one because it can be primary and secondary. But when we say those emotions, those are things that we all understand. It's a universal language. So I recently had someone reach out. They were like, "Well, when I tell my husband that I'm upset, he thinks I'm angry, but I'm not angry. I'm sad or I'm lonely."
Mm,
And so they were miscommunicating in their home because he was assuming she was angry at him when she was sad or lonely. And so the
right.
eight core words do connect with the other person where you know what I'm saying when I say lonely. That's connecting. You know exactly what I'm meaning. But if I say I'm stressed, those core drivers of what's causing my stress can be different for me than it is for you.
So then maybe that would explain. I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, Tara, because we should really explain what the core emotions wheel is.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that makes me think of the word choice of joy versus happy. I was curious, probably we resonate better with the word joy or the
Yes.
emotion of joy in our
Yep.
pleasure center than happy. Is that why that word is on the wheel versus happy?
Yes. Yes. And so our core emotion wheel, it was
Yes, let's
created
talk
by
about
our
that.
founders. Yeah. Yeah. It was created by our founders, Dr. Glenn and Phyllis Hill, who founded the connection codes. And Dr. Glenn studied emotion and how it was responding between his clients. And so he and Phyllis were living in a marriage like many of us, so disconnected, so much pain. And they were so determined to figure out, why is our marriage so bad? They didn't want to dissolve their marriage. They believed in the sanctity of their union. And so he went back to school and studied marriage and family therapy, clinical sexology, because he was determined to figure out why their marriage was struggling so bad. He was 50 years old when he did that. And through that process, they really started getting into the science of emotion and getting curious in their own home of, when they were disconnecting, what that driver was, what was actually happening underneath the surface. And they realized what was causing their disconnection was their emotion, the emotion that was firing in their brain that was creating the reaction. And now they're disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And so Phyllis realized, oh, if it's our emotion that's causing us to disconnect, maybe our emotions can help us connect. And so through that, they dove into what is called the 8 core emotions and created the wheel based on that. And so those emotions are shame, guilt, fear, lonely, sad, hurt, joy, and anger. And they are based on the 5 neural regions of our brain. And so we have a pleasure center, which is joy, a pain region, which is sad, lonely, and hurt, fear, anger, and disgust, which is shame and guilt.
Mm.
And they chose which words ended up on the core emotion wheel based on, again, the research of how people responded when the words were said. And so shame and guilt are separated because shame's nonverbal response, we look down, we close inward,
Right.
looks different than guilt. And joy, when they did studies on the brain of how different words were fired when they were said, joy was the one that was the most connecting with
Mm.
people. And yeah, so they did extensive research on how to create this incredible tool that has changed my family, my marriage, and now marriages and families in over 60 countries, which is incredible.
Yes, yes. Well, I only learned of the connection codes and the core emotion wheel 4 months ago, and it
Okay.
has been fantastic for us. And even just last night, Andrew is under a lot of pressure at
Yep.
work and really busy and swamped with 400 emails that he can't hardly even get to because of all the other demands. And so I was washing some dishes and he sat down and he's like, hey, if we could just go over the wheel. I
Yes.
felt shame today. And he just, so talk with us about
Yes.
how we can use this core emotion wheel to connect. Explain that to us or explain what happened over the island and the
Yes.
dishes last night at our house.
Absolutely. I love that so much. Like, I feel joy in hearing you say that, because I was in a very similar situation with my husband recently where he was under a lot of stress at work. And so we were doing the core emotion wheel every single night right before bed so he could
Mm-hmm.
process what he was feeling and get it out and actually get some sleep.
Right.
And so the first time I ever did the core emotion wheel with my husband, we had gone through the live class with Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, and it was right after COVID hit. So they were supposed to
Mm.
be speaking in San Diego, and the speaking event got shut down. And we knew the guy that was hosting the event, and he said, hey, can we do a Zoom call instead? And I'll invite a few of my friends. And
Mm-hmm.
Wes and I were lucky enough to be on that call. And at this point in our relationship, we had done therapy. We had worked through a lot of our traumas, quote unquote, but we were still miscommunicating. We were in a good spot, but we were still having those normal struggles that we just thought, okay, this is what it is. This is marriage. And we sat down 2 weeks into learning their tools and did the core emotion wheel for the very first time. And keep in mind, we had been together now. COVID was there. So we were in our homes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never
Right.
leaving. And he started doing the wheel with me, and he shared with me his sad. And I just remember thinking, I had no idea.
Mm.
We were talking all day, every day. And I had no idea that you were experiencing sadness in your life over this specific area.
Mm,
And it was something that I even unknowingly was probably pouring gas on, just
mm,
not knowing. And it wasn't that he didn't want to share with me what was going on. He didn't know how. He didn't have the language to
mm,
share. And in that moment, I thought, this is different. This is different than anything I've ever seen. We do video production. We filmed courses for countless entrepreneurs, New York Times bestsellers. And I was like, this is a step above anything I've ever been a part of.
mm,
And it changed our lives from that moment on. And so, what you do is you take the core emotion wheel. We're at the point now where we do it in real time, but as you're
mm.
early on and you're learning the process, and by sharing every day, what it does is it retrains your brain to know what these emotions feel like. So, for example, right now, your husband was experiencing shame yesterday at work. And oftentimes, if we can't identify that it's shame, we just feel yucky. We just
Mm,
feel like our gross. We come home from work, we're putting our bag down, and we say, well, how was work, honey? Fine. And
right,
that's the response. It was fine. But we feel really yucky inside, and we don't even know how to describe what we're feeling. Well, oftentimes, at least in my home, it would be Wes coming home from work, and I have had a rough day with the kids all day. It's just one of those days. Y'all know what it's like. And so he comes home. I am exhausted. I am like overwhelmed. I'm angry. The kids have been fighting. And how was your day? Fine. Well, he assumes that I am mad at him for being gone. It had nothing to do with him. I was exhausted because I'm not sleeping. I was, feeling guilt because I yelled at the kids earlier that day. I had fear that he wasn't going to come home until later. I had all of these other emotions firing in my body. But now we are arguing with each other
right,
because he thinks I'm mad at him, and it had nothing to do with him. And we do that all the time with our kids and with our
right,
spouses. So when we can sit down and share, oh, this is when I felt anger today. This is when I felt shame today. Now we know what's actually going on in each other's lives. And we have retrained our bodies to where now when I'm feeling shame with my kids, I can process it in that moment. And I'm not letting the yuckiness inside my body cause me to react to them in a way that I will later feel guilt
right.
about because I recognize it in the moment.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can say something as simple as I am feeling lonely right now because I'm the only one left in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. And
Yes.
you're all off playing and I would, or watching something, and I would really like to have some company
Yes.
or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Or when our kids are causing a ruckus in the grocery store and we're reacting to them and we're going to leave, all that.
Right,
It's because we are experiencing our own shame in that moment. I have
right.
shame. People are looking at me.
Yeah, I can't keep my kids under control.
Exactly. I can't keep
Yeah,
my kids under control. And when we realize, oh, what I'm feeling right now is actually really not even about our kids, it's about our own perception of what other people think, and we can
right,
process that out, then we can reframe it for ourselves and talk ourselves out of a moment. It's like, oh, okay, this is fine. This moment is fine. My kids are actually just being kids. I'm have my own shame. I can process that, or I can communicate with my kids about it or my husband about it, and it changes the entire dynamic of the situation.
right, right. And the beautiful thing with having the core emotion wheel as a tool is that we are going to experience emotions and feelings. They just happen. It's like it's life, right? But they don't have to control us. We
Yes.
can decide what we do with them, and we can use the core emotion wheel. We can use the joy, the anger, the shame, the guilt, fear, lonely, sad, joy to help us process those emotions. What am I feeling right now? And then how can I respond? Or what can I be thinking about this? What is on the Renewed Mama podcast, we talk a lot about renewing our thoughts, our words, and our responses. And by understanding those core emotions, we can think truth. We can say, what does God say about this? What should I be speaking instead? Or how can I respond in a better way?
Absolutely. And it helps us unpack things that we've been carrying around from our past. So
Mm,
oftentimes I'll realize, oh, the shame that's firing in my brain, that's something from my childhood. And now that I can recognize that it's shame and I can trace it back to where it started, I can start to heal that part
yes.
of my story. I can not let that control those reactions anymore. And so it is such a powerful way to not only connect with in relationships with our husbands and with our kids, but it is a powerful tool in healing our journeys. And I want to add here, because I feel like there's listeners that are thinking you just named all 8 core emotions. One of the biggest questions we get asked is, why is
Yeah.
there only one positive emotion?
Yes. Good
So
question.
there's 7 that quote unquote are negative. Who wants to feel shame? I don't want to recognize the loneliness. But the
Mm,
truth is that our emotions are our guide. We, as a leadership, me being the CEO, Dr. Glenn and Phyllis being the founders, we are faith-based people. And so we believe that God designed our brains with these emotions to guide us. So fear is what keeps us in our lane on the street. It keeps our kids from running out and getting
right.
hit by a car. We want fear. We want that. It keeps us alive. But we don't want it to control ourselves. So fear becomes damaging when it's firing in our body, but we don't recognize that it's fear, and we're
Hmm.
held back from reaching our full potential, from talking to the person that we should talk to, because we just feel like a big ball of yuck in
Right.
our body. And so emotions are our God, they are our messengers. They're not positive or negative. Even joy, when it's unprocessed, it can have a lot of negative response. People cheat on their spouse because of joy.
Mm,
I gave this example in our podcast recently. I burned my mouth with pizza rolls because of joy. I get excited about something, pizza, and
yeah.
next thing I know, I burnt the whole inside of my mouth off because I was experiencing so much joy. My
Yeah.
kids last night, I had a kid that I had to check for a concussion because the other kids were experiencing so much joy, swinging him in a swivel chair that his face planted into the fireplace.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
joy that was driving that behavior, even though they were doing something they knew was wrong.
Right.
And so, emotions, again, they're not good or bad. They are there to guide us and be messengers.
Yeah, yeah. They're like that little meter on our car that says, oh, check the oil or whatever. They're the meter that just helps us check in with ourselves and
Yes.
what are we feeling right now?
Yes, absolutely. And I love as well that when we tune into them, we want to be able to identify that. If you've seen the movie Inside Out, she tries to erase all the sadness, but when she erases the sadness, she erases the joy at the same
Mm,
time. They go hand in hand, and that's what helps you live a full life and be able to really experience it deeply. I have a child that really struggles or struggled identifying joy. And
mm,
they walked around. I mean, you just thought they had the worst childhood in the world. Just they did not know how to show joy and or even live in joy. And since doing the core emotion wheel with them regularly, now, when they're doing the wheel, they'll say one of each, but when they get to joy, there's like 5 things that day. They're like, oh, nope, here's one more. Oh, nope, here's one more. And so
right.
I love that not only can they identify their shame, that way they're not going to spin their brother in a chair over and over again because shame told them not to, but now they can know what joy feels like in their body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. After Dr. Glenn and Phyllis came to our church to share about the connection code and the core emotion wheel, it was so sweet because that exact Sunday, which they were there Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday morning, of course, too. But that Sunday in children's church, I mean, I don't think it was any more than 4, came up to me and he was like, there's this like colorful wheel
on our fridge and it has
Yeah.
emotions on it. And I felt joy today when, and I forget what he told me, but I thought, oh, how sweet. Those parents, sweet parents must
Yes.
have gone straight home and said, let's do
Yes.
this emotion wheel. And I was so amazed at how he was happy to express what he was feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that so much. And for us, I have a 10, 8, 6, and just turned 5-year-old. And for kids, we have an emoji core emotion wheel
Mm.
that parents can download. There's going to be a link. Do you put links in the show notes? Is that where people can?
Sure. I'll be glad to.
So there'll be a link in the show notes where you can download your own core emotion wheel. And there's one for the parents, and then there's or the adults, and then there's an emoji one for kids. And I would print it and put it on my fridge. And my 3-year-old at the time would go up and use his face to mimic the emotion of
Mm,
on the emoji wheel. And so he would mimic the anger, and I'd go, "Ooh, anger." And then he would mimic the sad and go, "Oh, sad." And so I would use my tone and my words to say the emotion as he was mimicking it. And
right.
now at 5, he came home recently from school, oh, just so upset, just crying, crying. I was like, "Oh, buddy, what's happening for you?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't, just like not really answering." I was like, "Are you feeling sad?" He goes, "No, no, I'm not feeling sad." He goes, "I'm feeling the one where you do something wrong." And I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, buddy, you're having guilt." He goes, "Yeah, I'm having guilt. I hit someone on the playground." And at 5 years old, he is telling me about his guilt and what he's
Right.
experiencing. And so now I can connect with him, I can listen to him, and he's not going to walk around my house the rest of the evening dysregulated, flooded with emotion, and acting. We act as a dumber version of ourselves when our brains are flooded with emotion. But he's going to have a clear mind because he processed that guilt with me at 5 years old. And it's just beautiful.
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, tell us the power in the ooh. So tell us
Yeah.
what that is. I know Dr. Glenn and Phyllis talk about the power of ooh.
Yes. So one of the big things with the core emotion wheel and that we teach at the connection codes is holding safe space for other people. And oftentimes someone will share with us an experience they're having, a pain that they're having, and we'll either step in and try to fix the pain, we'll
Mhm.
try to diminish it like, "Oh, no, no. Don't worry about that. You don't have to feel that way." Or we become defensive.
Mm,
And so if my husband came to me as, "I was really hurt last night that you um, said this rude thing to me. You snapped at me." I
right.
would have been like, "Do you know how many times you've snapped at me this week?" I would just immediately defend. And would do the same with our kids. And so we teach how to just hold space for someone. And that is the power of the ooh. And especially when we're doing the core emotion wheel, when my husband is processing his hurt or his sad, I ooh him. It's an audible response. I just go, yeah, oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
wow. Yeah. And what that does is tells his brain she's listening to me. She sees me right now. And she's not trying to do anything about my pain. She's just holding space for me. And doing that with him and doing that with my kids, it has created a safety in our relationship and a safety even for myself. There are times with my husband, I'll share something with him and I'm like, "I just need you to ooh me right now. I
Yeah.
don't need you to fix this. Just ooh me right now." And he'll go, "Ooh, okay, yeah." And we'll just like hold space for a few minutes and then we can move on with our day. And I think that is one of the damaging things right now in our relationships is that we don't know how to listen to each other. We don't know how to create safety for each other. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's easy to hear. If Wes says to me, "I'm really hurt because I thought that we were going to have some time together last night when the kids went to bed and you
Right.
went to sleep." It's hard for me to hear that. I want to defend myself, but at the same time, I can recognize now, yeah, I can see why that would hurt. Like I can see your pain in that. And if I'll pause for just a minute and hold space for it, then we can move on and not be disconnected from each other.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Actually, that makes me think of our conversation last night around Andrew's work at stress. And I asked him a question, and then we got distracted by the kids. So he didn't actually make it through the whole wheel. So then we
Yes.
were laying in bed last night or getting into bed, and I said, "Oh, Andrew, you know what? We didn't get to finish the whole wheel about work. I asked you that question, and then you answered the question, and we got interrupted by the kids." So yeah, it really does make, we have found that it really does provide an opportunity to just be still and listen to each other instead of defending or trying to solve the problem. Yeah, or taking offense.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. And over time, that builds safety in your
right.
relationship, which that is such a foundational core need in marriage. As soon as we don't feel safe with each other, we lose identity with each other, and that's where things fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. Well, Tara, let's have a little bit of fun. How about we talk through the core emotion wheel together for our listeners to get a
I
feel
would
for
love
what it's like?
Yeah, I think that's great. I would love that. When you download your core emotion wheel for the listeners, you'll hear Dr. Glenn and Phyllis give a great example on how to use it. And especially with our kids, we want them to say every single emotion, even if they need to make it up. So my son for a long time
Mm.
would make up his lonely because it was the goal is to train your brain on what the emotions feel like. And so by him making up the lonely, I was on an island all by myself. He
Oh,
now can identify what loneliness is and share with me in the moment when he's experiencing that.
okay,
And
that's
so,
beautiful to know.
yes,
Thanks for
yep,
sharing
that's
that.
a great way to do it. Or even better, think of a big time you felt it. So for us adults, we can even think of something from our childhood if we can think of something in the last few days.
Okay.
Um, okay, for me, I felt anger last night when I came in and the room and realized that I had a kid with a bloody nose and possible concussion because the other two kids were breaking a rule that they knew they should not have done.
Mm.
Um, I felt shame. I felt shame because this morning I had a kid who'd asked me repeatedly to stop and buy his teacher a flower on the way to school today. And I
Oh.
was in a hurry, so I was not
Mhm.
able to do it. And I just feel shame that I didn't plan my morning well enough
Mm.
to keep that to for him.
Mhm.
I feel guilt because I was having some technical difficulties getting on the Zoom and you were so patient with me. But just guilt in things not working correctly and that I was wasting your time.
Mm.
Fear. I feel fear. My husband is flying his airplane back from about a 4 hour drive, so a 2 hour flight by himself this afternoon. And so just always a little bit of fear when he's flying in the air by
Mhm.
himself. Loneliness because he's been out of town and he's going back out of town tomorrow. So just parenting alone, there's a lot of loneliness there.
Mhm.
Um, sad for my son last night, just getting bumped and bruised, just seeing him hurt creates so much hurt in
Mm.
me. Hurt because I had another kid who was flooded with their own emotions this week and they just used their words to be super unkind to me.
Mm.
It just really hurt my feelings. Um, and joy, because last night I was putting my oldest child to bed. And even without pulling the core emotion wheel, she's been doing it for a while now, so she can just talk in real time about it.
Right.
She processed with me something that happened in her day when she felt a lot of shame in front of her class. And
Mm.
I would have never known that she experienced that. And so just so much joy that I get to know my kids so deeply and that they have the language to communicate with me what's happening in their lives that they wouldn't know how to communicate otherwise. So just tons and tons of joy that I get to know her and what she's experiencing. And joy being here and talking with you and your listeners. So much joy in that and sharing this tool.
Yes, thank you. That was awesome. Love
Yeah,
that.
and so for the listeners, I just want you to imagine what we just did with each other, hearing from your kids what they experience, and hearing from your spouse what they're experiencing. When you can imagine that, you can see how this tool can transform your family. So there.
What do you wish that all moms knew? And this can be about anything. You love talking to moms. Anything that you wish all moms knew?
Yes. Last night, I was at the soccer field with my 4 kids alone, and mine are at an older age now. So while we were having our own set of issues, as we were leaving, there was a mom parked next to me, and I'd already heard her coming. She had a probably 3-year-old boy running ahead of her towards the parking lot, a baby in her arms, another younger child, and then a kid behind her still coming off the soccer field. And without even seeing her, I could just hear the day that she had had. Like the way she was yelling at her son. And then we were parked next to each other, and the older daughter came around, and she's buckling the kid in. And the daughter asked the question, goes, "It's just been a day. It's been a day." And I have been there. I know that day. And so I turned to her and I said, "I just want you to know you are doing a great job. You're doing a great job." And I got emotional because even right now, thinking about it, I get emotional because I see myself 4 years ago. And I had a day on the soccer field about 4 or 5 years ago where I was chasing a 3-year-old across multiple fields with 2 other kids in tow. And I just wanted to wrap my arms around her entire family. That 3-year-old who was having so much joy running through the soccer field, and that mom who was just completely depleted and exhausted. And I wish that she knew that 3-year-old was not trying to make her angry. I have so much empathy now for kids. I see the damage that I created pre-connection codes with my own kids, of shutting them down and not seeing there's all kinds of things that they're experiencing that I just didn't know they were experiencing.
Right.
I just want moms to know that, one, you're not alone. There's a lot going on in those babies' bodies and brains that you can't see. And that when you can create and use tools to connect with them, it's going to uncover a whole new world in your relationship.
Yeah.
And you deserve, as a mom, to take that breath and know that you are doing a great job. Yeah.
Well, we bless her and all the other moms out there who are having the day or the days.
Oh my gosh. For me,
They
it was
are
here.
in rows.
Oh
They
my
feel like
gosh.
they're never going to end.
Yes.
That you're doing a good job. Yeah.
You are doing a great job. You are. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is the same for you as it is for my heart to say to the moms listening that we are here. We are available. If you need that space or that someone to just process emotions with, that we are available. The connections code is the Renewed Mama. Coaching is available. We want to support each other in this motherhood journey.
Absolutely. Yes, that is my heart for sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, where can we connect? As I said before, all the links will be in the show notes, but why don't you tell us, for those listening, where can we find the connections, codes, and the core emotion wheel?
Yeah. So you can go to connectioncodes.co/renew-mama. And that is where you can download the core emotion wheel for free. And we're also going to offer a 20% off discount code for our Parenting Connected course. And so this course teaches you all about the core emotion wheel, but also tools of how to give your kids identity, help them feel seen. This has helped with anxiety. It helps with understanding what's going on in your kid's life, how to be that safe person for them so they will share with you what's going on much deeper than, well, how was your day? When we ask each other, how was your day? You're not going to get an answer. And we moms want to know what's going on in our kids' lives.
Right.
And when I use all of the tools of the connection codes with my kids, I learned things that I would have never known otherwise. And so we're going to offer a discount code for sure to any of your mamas that are listening that are like, I need help on this journey. And I want to connect with my kids and I want to connect with myself. We have that available for you.
Right, right. And you are the producer of the Connection Code podcast, which I would highly recommend you listen to. It is so good. As soon as I heard or we learned about the Connection Code when Dr. Glenn and Phyllis came to our church, I was doing some yard work outside and I downloaded actually their book on Audible, but the podcast too. I like binge listened to everything.
Yeah.
And there's so many amazing episodes on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is one of our favorite tools to use. And we talk a lot about marriage, motherhood, parenthood, and how emotions work. A lot of the science behind emotions is shared on the podcast.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Tera.
Wasn't this great? Tera and I would love to hear from you. What did you like about what you heard? Will you go to the show notes and download the Core Emotions Wheel and use it today with your husband and children? Tell us what breakthrough in communication you have. I'm going to be looking for your comments. My offer still stands, Mama. If you are wishing for another mama to talk through the Core Emotion Wheel with, support to not feel lonely in motherhood, I am all yours. Go to Renewed Mama Coaching and book your first coaching session with me. If any of my available half-hour chat times don't work for you, tell me what times do work, and I'll make it happen in my schedule. I know exactly what it's like to put on a good face and be falling apart inside, in my marriage and in my parenting. I know what it's like to try to communicate with your husband, but it only ends up in arguing, an offense, and a wall between us. I know what it's like to take out my frustration on my kids and put them down with my words because I didn't know how to talk better. Not until I got coached by God and His Word, and became super intentional with what I was thinking and speaking, because out of the mouth, the heart speaks. I got serious about what was in my heart, and I got amazing coaches and mentors. I got teachable and willing to change. I'm still learning, but if I can help you get unstuck in your marriage and your parenting, your thoughts and your words and your responses, I am here for that. I am here for you. Go now to renewedmamacoaching.com and book your first coaching session with me. Your parenting, the peace in your home, better relationships with your husband and your children, less outbursts and temper tantrums, and a strong, positive mom mindset can be yours. If the Renewed Mama podcast encourages you, would you leave a review on Apple Podcasts and YouTube? Your review and your comments on YouTube help the podcast to grow so that more mamas find it and can stay renewed too. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening to the Renewed Mama podcast. I appreciate you. I care about you so much. For more resources, visit the Renewed Mama podcast, Renewed Mama Coaching, Speak Life Badges, and Austin's Kids Club. Words have a powerful influence. It doesn't matter whether they are spoken, written in a text, emailed, memed, heard in a song, or seen on TV. Words can portray life, encouragement, hope, or lies, such as, "You'll never be good enough," "You'll never be successful," It's too hard, why even try? I just can't get it like all the smart kids in class. Speak Life Badges helps you change the messages that your children hear and believe. They need to hear your words of life. They need to hear your words that encourage them in who they are as a person and who they can grow to become. Speak Life Badges are sticker award badges with an I am message so that your child owns and believes the truth spoken over them. And while children like being recognized with awards, the lasting influence are the words you speak over your child as you award them with the badge. Sometimes we just don't know how to speak life. Sometimes in frustration we react and say the wrong thing. Speak Life Badges gives you scripts, the words for you to say to your child or student as you award each badge. So that when your child is out on the playground or working through a hard math problem or standing in front of a mirror or comparing themselves to another classmate, when they are faced with truth or the lie about who they are as a person, now the lie won't have any strength or merit. Because they, through you, with the help of Speak Life Badges, have been told that I am strong, I am smart, I can do the hard stuff, I work with excellence, I don't give up, I keep trying, I am teachable. Speak Life Badges is changing mindsets and breaking lies in the hearts of children. Children like Charlotte, who is so proud to wear her I Am a Great Reader badge because no one else had made her feel so happy about her reading before. Or Colton, who was willing to face the hard schoolwork and try again and again until he got it, because he believed the words that were written on his Speak Life badge. I am a champion. Now you can use your words intentionally to speak life over your children using Speak Life Badges. Austin the Hedgehog is bringing mailbox fun to your kids. Your children ages 3 to 13 can receive mailbox surprises like activity postcards, happy birthday cards, stickers, crafts, recipe cards, coloring pages, puzzles, special gifts like the I Am Loved journal, a tumbler, Austin's matching happy birthday toque, and so much more from Austin the Hedgehog, straight to your mailbox with their own name on it each month. All teaching life lessons such as helping, using time wisely, how to monitor their own screen time, how to choose the right friends. Being strong means more than just muscles, how to have self-control, and their words are like seeds that will grow into fruit in their life. It is oh so good from Austin the Hedgehog. 2 subscription levels are available. Register your children today at austinskidsclub.com.